Welcome to the sixth class. It's the sixth class for the food waste reduction cooking series. My name is Jacqueline, and I'll be showing you how to make different types of tacos, taco fillings, and salsa. So the point of this series is to utilize different ingredients that you would typically get rid of or throw out before you can use them, either because it's going bad or you just don't, you just can't finish, there's too much of it. So what I like to do is utilize different ingredients and repurpose it, whether it's repurpose leftovers or trying a different flavor or a different recipe for tomatoes or onions or different proteins. So what we've been doing in the last few segments and demos is trying to incorporate different things that you wouldn't really use all the time, or something that you would use, but you're kind of sick of using the same things over and over again, right? Or same flavors, same recipes. We also have the recipes on the CCE Tompkins website. There should be a section that says Food Waste Reduction Cooking Series, and then you'll find the segments for the recordings, the recipes, some tip sheets on how to reduce food waste, and so forth. So let's get started with the recipes for today. We're going to make chicken tacos, citrus spiced chicken tacos, cauliflower tacos for a veggie option, and then we're going to make salsa. And you'll see along the way how you can use different ingredients. You don't necessarily need these specific ones. Use the vegetables that you have at home, use the proteins that you have at home that you would like to experiment with or that you really like. It's based on your preference, right? You have to have fun. So to start, I always tell people, always have tasting spoons, because you want to try your food as you're cooking so that you know where you're at. If you don't try it throughout the whole process, by the end of the cooking demo or the cooking process, you have something that's too salty or not salty enough or too sweet, or just all these different flavors that you don't typically like. So you want to try it as you go. And I usually mise en place, which is another word for prepping, before my cooking demo, or just before I cook at home, like on my own. So I'll show you each ingredient as we go. So to begin, we have the ingredients for the chicken tacos. So for the chicken tacos, we have I'll show you right here, actually. I have some minced garlic. Actually, this will be easier. Minced garlic, diced onions, bay leaves, and they're the dried ones. Mine are from my little plant that I have. If you buy it at the grocery store, that's totally fine. Diced tomatoes, oranges. I believe I put orange juice on the recipe list, but if you have fresh oranges, you can use that too. We're going to use the juice, and then I'm going to add the peel to mine, just for extra flavor. And then we have the spices. Here, I'll show you here. We have cumin, chili powder. I ran out of cayenne, but you can add cayenne if you'd like. And then the trick is adding cinnamon. And then we have cilantro, but we're going to use that for all three. So we have chopped up cilantro here. And I'm using fresh cilantro. If you have dried cilantro, that's okay too. I'll give you more tips as we go. The next recipe is going to be the cauliflower tacos. So we have cauliflower florets right here. And then I have something, it's very similar to the chicken. So there's minced garlic, diced onions, diced tomatoes, and diced bell peppers, and then lemon for the acidic part. And then I also have a can of chickpeas. I'm using the canned chickpeas, so I rinse it twice to remove excess salt. If you have dried chickpeas or other types of beans that you like, feel free to use that. If you're using the dried ones, of course, you have to soak it overnight just to have a nice texture. It's not too tough. And then we have salt and pepper, of course. I always have the salt and pepper on hand, and paprika. And then for those tacos, I'm going to use yellow corn tortillas. If you want to make your own tortillas, That's great. That's always a lot of fun. You can use masa harina and water. Just add a little salt and make the dough yourself. And then you just flatten it out to the shape that you want. And then you can prepare it. I could always give you tips on that if you'd like to try making it on your own. It's always a fun activity with family or friends. But if you want to just purchase them at the store, it's probably much faster, much easier. That's what I have. You can also use flour tortillas. That's another option. I chose the corn tortillas because that's what I like to eat. Okay, the next thing we're going to, or the final thing that we're going to make is the salsa, which you'll see you can use different ingredients for salsas because if you don't like spicy, then don't use the spiciest pepper, right? That's just going to, you're not going to want to eat it, and then it's just going to go to waste. So why bother using those peppers if you're not going to enjoy it? So I have jalapenos here. I'm okay with spice. I always like adding chili flakes and different spicy ingredients to mine. So you'll probably see me adding more spicy ingredients in here. So jalapenos, tomatoes, garlic, onions, and some more lemon. For the salsa, you don't necessarily have to mince everything or dice everything exactly how you want it because we are going to blend it. And I'm using my little, it's like the bullet blender, and that's just convenient for me. I do have a larger blender, like the full-size one, but I'm only making a little bit, so I don't need to take that out. And same goes for you. If you don't have to use something so large, don't waste the energy. You don't have to waste your energy. You don't have to, take the time to clean that out. It's too large for this amount. And this is nice and convenient. Now, if you don't have a blender, that's okay too. I'll show you how to create the same product, but with different methods, okay? So it's gonna be medium-high for both. And you might see me from time to time adjusting the heat on the stove. It's just because it's my stove. If your stove is different, if you can rely on yours, that's totally fine. You can just leave it as medium-high. Mine sometimes gets too hot, so I constantly adjust. Just going to add some oil to both pans, and you can use skillets. I'm using like a saucepan, larger pot for my chicken because that's what I have. I'm cooking for one. It's gonna be a lot of food for me, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it. You could also, the nice thing about tacos is that you could also store the filling for the following day. If you have leftovers, you don't have to make tacos again the next day. You can add the filling to a salad, to some greens, some fresh greens. There's like a nice salad for you. You could always make a stir fry out of it, add some rice. So you can do like a fried rice, or you can do, last segment, we actually made like a noodle bowl with vegetables. So you can always add that filling to your noodle bowl and then just saute the noodles with it so it gets that flavor. So there are many things you can do with these recipes. It's not just making tacos, but of course it's Tuesday, so Taco Tuesday, and it's fun and delicious. All right, so I'm just heating the pans for now. Okay. A way to check if your oil is nice and warm or like hot enough is, let's see, yeah, I think you can. Okay, so you see how it's pretty thick right now? So you want it to be loose, a little bit looser, and that will show you that it's ready. It's very like simple trick. I'm doing the same thing on the other pan. Here, I'm just going to adjust this for a second so you can see me. Okay. So I have both going. I'm going to do the cauliflower tacos in here just for space. So it's the one that you can see. And then I'm going to do the chicken one, the chicken filling in this one, okay? So I always start with the aromatics, which would be, in this case, it's going to be the garlic and the onions. So I'm going to add the garlic and the onions, or that's not quite ready yet. So I'll let that heat up more. To the chicken, the pot with the chicken. So garlic and onions first. I minced the garlic, so that'll cook nice and fast. Then let's see how this is going. All right, so this is somewhat ready. We'll add the garlic and the onions to this one. Okay. And just so you know, I'm making chicken, right? So you might be wondering, where's the chicken? I put the chicken in the refrigerator because I'm not using it just yet. You want to keep it nice and cold. Keep it to a certain temperature so it doesn't spoil and it doesn't accumulate any kind of bacteria or anything like that. And I'm using tongs for my chicken. Feel free to use a wooden spoon, spatula, whatever you'd like, whatever you have at home. But I'm using this because I cut the chicken to smaller pieces. And that's so it has a nice bite size. Okay, and then I'll use this one for the cauliflower. So you just want the onions and the garlic to flavor the oil. You want you just want the aromatics to come out. You want that flavor to be nice and strong when you're cooking. So I'm just gonna let that sit for a bit. Let it soften. Once again, I'm just turning this a little higher. Technically, for salsas, well, not technically, let's not say technically, because it's your kitchen, you can do whatever you want. Everyone's going to have a different preference based on flavor, texture, appearance. So feel free to have like chunkier textures for the onions, the garlic, or even the cauliflower. Or if you want it to be a little softer, then cook it a little longer. Add some liquid so that it'll get much softer. You'll see as we go. But this is your kitchen, this is your time, this is your food. So make it how you want it to taste. If you see an ingredient that you don't like that I'm using, substitute it with something else. That's quite all right. And even for the cooking method, if you prefer baking food as opposed to sauteing or frying, that's okay too. You can bake it, and then it's just a matter of having the same pieces and mixing those ingredients appropriately. That's all you have to do, really. That's the main difference. Okay, so I'm gonna let these form. Okay. Then we'll add the tomatoes next to both. Okay. All right. So for the salsa, we can get this going because for my salsa, I wanted to have a nice cooked flavor. Usually I would char the peppers and the onions and the tomatoes, excuse me, just because I like that charred flavor. So sometimes I'll use the grill. If you don't have a grill, that's okay. You can use a griddle here on your stovetop. But if you don't like the charred flavor, once again, you don't have to do that. So we're going to do it a different way, just so that you can see how else you can prepare it. So I'm using a small skillet. That's what I have in my apartment. So I'm going to use that. And you can just put it on like a medium low. You're going to add some oil to that pan. And I'm still keeping an eye on these two other pots, right? On the other skillets. And they're still working. They're okay for now. I'm going to start seeing everything get brown. So I added some oil to that third pan for the salsa, and we're just gonna let that cook slowly, okay? Mix this a little bit. Okay, so the oil's heating up on the other one. I'll show you all three skillets and pots as I'm going. And if you wanna do this one by one, feel free to do it one by one too, that's okay. I know some people have like a limited amount of like good burners in their kitchen. I know I'm using all three. Some are working better than the others, I can tell already. So once again, I did not cut the peppers like in small sizes. I just diced the tomatoes just because I wanted to fit in the pan and I wanted to cook evenly. The garlic, I just cut them in half. Onions, they're just diced any old way. So I'm going to add the garlic to the skillet. I'm going to add the tomatoes, onions, pretty much everything, and the jalapenos. Now be careful when you're cutting those jalapenos because you don't want the juices or the seeds to get on your fingers or even like splash in your eye. That's going to burn really like a lot. It's gonna hurt. So put gloves. You can try to put gloves on when you're cutting certain types of peppers. That'll help out a lot. And then we're just gonna let the peppers and the onions and the tomatoes cook. So it looks like this. You can see it on the other square, zoom square. And we're just gonna let it soften, let it cook into the oil. I'll probably add more oil in a little bit. Okay, so we're going back to the cauliflower pot, right? So you see that your garlic's nice and brown now. The onions are starting to brown as well. I used red onions, by the way. You can use any type of onions you want. So this is a good time to add the tomatoes first. Tomatoes and the peppers for the cauliflower. Okay. Okay, so I just added all of it. And my portion is probably about like half of what the recipe list said. But I'm cooking, once again, I'm cooking for myself. I don't want to use the whole, if I don't want to use the whole tomato, then I'm just going to use half because it's just me. I can only eat so many tacos. I love tacos, but I can only eat so many. Okay, we're going to coat this now. You can start adding salt to this. Just a little bit for now. I also like using red onions because I like the color. You see how there's some red here, there's some purple, and then some yellow from the bell peppers. I like using different colors. But feel free to use what you have, especially if it's about to go, then just use it now. Use it for this recipe, why not? Okay. And a quick note to our guest, to our participant, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat and I'll be sure to answer those questions or, look at the comments. And we're working, you missed it, we're working on all three things simultaneously. So I have the cauliflower veggie tacos and the other Zoom square that says Jacqueline's iPhone, that's the one you see right there. I have another pot for the chicken filling for the tacos, and then I have the third pot, which is for the salsa. Now we can mix the one for the salsa a little bit, just so that it gets a nice coat of oil around it. And I think this burner for me is not working so well, so I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. Yeah, just coat, make sure it gets a nice coat. And then it'll slowly cook and soften and break down, and that's what you want. All right. Now, my pot, I'm going to show you in the other Zoom square. You can see the garlic's about ready. So at that point, I'm going to add the tomatoes, diced tomatoes. It's very similar. Both fillings are similar. Can't you tell? The ingredients are it's pretty much the same. You'll see the difference when you start adding spices and protein. So I added the tomatoes, and I have the bay leaves here. I'm going to add that, and I'm using dried bay leaves. That's okay. And you can just keep an eye on everything as you go. Just go back and forth. That's the key. And just mix it in. I add the bay leaves in the beginning because you want that flavor to come out. You want it to get into the oil, into the other, like the tomatoes, and you'll smell it. It smells so great. So that's why I typically add it first. Okay, so we have the chicken as well, right? For the second pot. I'll show you now. I'm going to take it out at this point. So I have the chicken and I sliced it. I don't want to touch it because I don't want to contaminate, cross-contaminate. I have diced chicken. It's about like an inch per cube or per piece, which is fine. If you want bigger chunks, that's okay too. If you want to use ground meat, that's totally fine. I'm using one of the parts from the previous lessons. I don't remember. I think it was lesson 3. I want to say it's lesson 3, but we can double check on the website, the CCE Tompkins website, for the exact one. But basically we did a lesson on stocks, pickles, and coulis. And for the stock, we used the chicken. And on that lesson, I also showed a video of me fabricating a whole chicken. So when you fabricate a whole chicken, it's great because you have all these different parts, right? And then you don't have to use it all at once if you don't want to. You can store it in little bags, and I'll show you right here in my freezer. So I have parts here. I have like chicken breasts, I have thighs, chicken wings, drumsticks, all these different pieces. And you can just put them in baggies and put them in the freezer if you're not going to use them yet. So that's ideal. And then for the chicken carcass, I made a stock out of it. I made chicken stock. And then we added other vegetables to it. See, so you don't necessarily have to use everything at once, because if, let's say you cook everything at once and you don't finish it, sometimes you don't know what to do. You don't know how to repurpose it, which is, of course, a reason why you can contact me if you want to learn different ways of repurposing your meal. Or you can just always store it for later and then prepare it for a different meal. Okay, so I'm just going to stir. Going back to this, I'm just stirring the tomatoes, garlic, onions for all of them. Just a quick stir. Okay, and I'm going to stir the salsa. And this salsa, it's going to be a slow process for the, well, slower than the others, let's put it that way. Okay, so now we're going to add the cauliflower, because the aromatics are pretty much soft and brown. So I have a quart container of cauliflower. And I could have cut it smaller if I really wanted to, but this is okay for me. That's all. Okay, and then you're just going to mix this a bit so that it's thinly distributed. Okay, gets all those flavors. Okay, so we have the cauliflower in there. If you were able to make the stock with us last time, feel free to get that stock at this point, and you can pour some in here into the cauliflower. If you don't want to add chicken stock though to your veggie, like if it's strictly vegetarian or vegan, then that's okay. Just use water. You can always use water. You can use, if you have veggie stock, then that's fine too. Just to add some liquid to the cauliflower, just to soften it up a little bit. Another option, by the way, for cauliflower tacos is if you deep fry the cauliflower. So good. Nice and crunchy, nice and tasty. But I figured, you know, let me stop frying everything. I've been frying everything. I want to keep it a little healthy, so we're going to do it this way. All right, so at this point, the pot for the chicken is ready, okay? And you'll see it right here. Tomatoes have broken down. All the flavors are mixed well. And now I'm going to add the chicken. Okay, about like 2 cups of chicken. But if you have more people joining you for lunch or dinner, then feel free to use more. And you can use different parts. If you have, I'm using chicken breast. If you have like the thighs or the drumsticks or just any other part, feel free to use that too. You just have to like shred that chicken. So you could either hard cook it or cook it entirely, either on a stove. Like you don't have to spice it or anything yet. As long as it's cooked, you can start breaking it apart, like let it cool and then break it apart and then add that chicken to the onions and all the flavorings. And that's actually going to make it quicker. But it depends on what pieces you have, what parts you have. You can also use this same recipe or the same flavor profile for tacos with pork, the pork filling. That's always nice too. I'm using chicken because that's what I have in my freezer. I'd rather use that before I purchase any other type of protein. And I don't really eat much as much red meat, so that's why I'm using the chicken. Okay, so I'm just letting the chicken go, I'm letting the cauliflower go, just keep an eye on it and keep stirring once in a while. Same goes for the salsa, or the ingredients for the salsa. I'll show you. I'm gonna stir it and then I'll show you. And if you have any questions, please feel free. Questions or comments.
I have a random question.
Yeah.
Why did you leave the jalapeno whole? Why didn't you dice it? Did I miss that?
Oh, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, they're large pieces, right? It's pretty much whole. I removed the seeds because that adds the spice. I left them whole because I'm going to blend my salsa.
Okay.
I'm going to blend it. And if I were to dice it and then blend it, it would just be like obliterated. Like the texture would be really, it won't be as chunky as I want it to be. So, and when I blend it, you'll see I'm gonna pulse it. So I'll still have larger chunks of jalapeno in there, which is something I like. But if you don't want to do it like that, you don't have to. You can always chop the peppers up and then blend it, and then you'll probably have a nice even texture at that point. But that's the only reason why. And usually when I make this, I char the peppers. So I need to keep it whole. It's easier for me to handle. So that's why I also do that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the other square. You can see the blistering on the peppers. That's what you want. And everything else is getting softer, getting those flavors in there. And at this point, we're going to add salt to everything. All three. Even if it's just a pinch, just you're like adding as you go, you know, adding flavors. So the chicken I didn't add any, so I might add a little bit more. Going to add some more to the salsa. And use any salt you want. I have Korean salt, which is a bit coarser. Okay, and then I'm going to add some black pepper. You have the already ground black pepper, that's okay. If you have this, I don't remember what it's called in English, but this thing for the pepper, you can use this too. Always nice. Okay. Bear with me when I call certain kitchen items other things. I have learned to use the English term for it or the culinary term for it. They'll call it all different things in the kitchen when you're working. So that's why I'll call, if I refer to it as different things, feel free to ask me what I mean by that. All right, so I'm going to stir once again. Right. Okay, so the cauliflower is cooking, the chicken's cooking, the items or the ingredients for the salsa is working. We're going to start adding our spices now so that we can get more flavors. All right, we're going to start with the cauliflower flavorings. It's pretty simple. You're going to add some paprika. If you have cayenne, use cayenne. If you have herbs that you like to use, I'd say for this typical profile, like don't use like oregano or anything like that. Maybe some parsley, some basil might change the flavor profile. You have Mexican oregano, that works too. We have a tip sheet for, well, one for food waste reduction, but the other one is on spices, like different spice blends, so that you can make different flavor profiles. So utilize that, and that'll give you different ideas for your taco filling. So I eyeball my spices. I added about like maybe 2 teaspoons, almost 3 of paprika. I added the salt and the pepper. That's okay for now. Keeping that nice and simple. And then we're going to give it a stir. And I don't want my cauliflower to break down, so I'm going to be as gentle as possible. Another option that you can do too if you don't have certain vegetables that I'm using, use the potatoes that you have. I know people tend to have more potatoes or they just leave them there for a while. You can use sweet potatoes, you can use regular potatoes. Have that as your filling for a veggie taco. That's okay too. I like mixing sweet potatoes sometimes with cauliflower, like diced sweet potatoes with cauliflower. So we added that, then we're going to add some lemon juice to the cauliflower. Okay, I'm using half, but if you want to add more, that's okay too. Some seeds are falling in there, but that's okay. Add some texture to the filling. So if you have this lemon, right, and you're not using, if you're not using it for anything else, try to save it. And you want to save it, right? Try to save it so you can use the zest, use this as zest for cake. I attempted to bake. I'm not much of a baker, but I tried to make lemon poppy seed cake, and I used the zest. I used some of the juice. So that's always nice. Or you can add the peel to your water. It's nice and refreshing, especially during the summer. You could also put pieces in your ice cube trays, and then just have like little lemon ice cubes, like lemon peel ice cubes. Or you can use this when you're baking vegetables that are ready to go. I had a few apples that were ready to go, so I would add lemon peel or orange peel to sliced apples and bake it. And you can add cinnamon, like allspice and stuff like that. And then there goes another dessert. And you don't have to waste your fruit or even the peel. So I still have the zest. I'm going to save mine. I'm going to use it later. Okay, next. So we're going to stir this one more time, actually. And you don't have to cover these. It's okay, because if you cover it, it's going to create some steam, and then it's going to get really, really soft, and it might get too mushy. If you like that, that's okay, then cover it, but I typically don't. So I'm going to keep mine on. Okay, now we're going to work on the chicken flavors. So just for convenience, I'm going to switch out the pots, okay? So you can see it. All right, so there's the chicken, it's working. The dices, since it's diced in smaller pieces, it'll cook a bit faster. Stir it a little bit. Then I'm going to add some chili powder. And I might have a heavy hand with my chili powder or cayenne pepper, any of those spicy ingredients, because I like it. But if you don't want to add that, that's all right too. Just add a little bit. You can add some cumin right here, like about a teaspoon. Okay. Maybe like 2 teaspoons of that. Add some cinnamon. I love using cinnamon for everything. Smoothies, meat dishes, savory dishes. It's a good way to change it up. So I added about like a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. I'm going to stir that for now. Okay. See, it's changing the colors. We added salt and pepper to that already. Excuse me. And then now we're going to add the oranges. Okay. First, I'm going to. In the recipe I use orange peel or orange zest and orange juice. I'm going to add the juice to mine first. And this is great too because you don't always have to eat oranges as is, right? You don't always need it for dessert. You can use it for things that are savory. So I'm using one whole orange, by the way. I know since it's just me I'm cooking for, I live alone. I buy fruit in, let's say like a bag of orange, like in bulk. I can't eat all those oranges all at once. So sometimes I have to be very creative because I don't want it to go to waste. Another option you can do too for certain fruit, you can freeze it and then you can make smoothies later on. And it's nice because especially for the summer on days like today, it's so hot. You can use that the frozen fruit that's already chopped up and prepped, put it in a blender, make a smoothie, make a juice out of it. That's always nice. Or like I said, you can use it to bake. You can use it for savory dishes. I could probably squeeze some more out of this, to be honest. It's my workout for today. All right, so I have 2 more. Once again, you can use the zest, similar to the lemons. You can choose that. I'm going to put only half of mine, of this orange into the chicken. Just put it in there, just like that. That's okay. And it'll soak up the flavor. And that may look strange, but honestly, it's adding so much more flavor to your dish. The peel is there, everything is there. And just keep it in there So if you have more time or if you have a larger portion, you can always braise your chicken, and you can use all different parts of the chicken, which is great because you're not wasting anything, right? So you'll have a pan, and you can just put those the oranges in there too. Braise everything together so that the flavors come out more. At this point though, I'm going to lower the heat for this. So medium low is okay because your chicken's almost done and you don't want it to overcook. So that's going, that's okay. Now we're going to go back to the cauliflower, and I'm going to lower both actually, just so that you can see it as I'm switching around. So going back to the cauliflower, you can see that it's becoming translucent. That means that it's almost ready. So I'm just going to give that a stir. And at this point, since this is almost cooked, I'm going to add the chickpeas. I love using chickpeas. They're so versatile. I add them to grain bowls, and I'm using a whole can. I'm adding a whole can, by the way. Grain bowls, you can use them for taco fillings. You can make hummus. You can use them for all different things. It's so great. All right. There we go. So I added the chickpeas. Okay, and we're just gonna give it a nice stir. Okay. Do any of you like chickpeas or using beans in your meals, or you try to stay away from them?
I haven't cooked with them too much. I make hummus sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like roasted chickpea recipes that looked pretty good, but I've never actually tried them.
Yeah, those sound really good, but I don't like, honestly, I don't like them as much roasted, just because well, it takes longer when I roast them, and I want to eat I love chickpeas, so I'll just eat them faster. But I do like sautéing them in different things, and then from one of the participants' comments, it's great in salad. That's what I added to salad. So good. But yes, that is an option. I don't know if you've tried deep fried chickpeas. That's always a great snack too. I don't know. I just love chickpeas, so I'm just like, I want it now. I want to cook it fast. But yes, definitely try roasted. That would be a great option. Okay, so I added the chickpeas. It's just working there. Just adding. It's getting mixed into the flavors. Let's go back to the salsa real quick. Here. So you see how it's getting some brown on it? That's what you want. You want those flavors to cook nicely. Okay. Smells really nice too. Peppers. Sometimes if you're doing like a dry cooking method, sometimes sautéing, if you don't use as much oil or anything like that, or if you're grilling so that you can char, the spiciness of the peppers might go into the air, and you'll know what I mean once you experience it. It's going to you'll smell the spiciness. I know that sounds strange, but you'll smell the spiciness. So just be careful when you're working with peppers. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but if you don't like jalapenos, you can use bell peppers. You can use different types of tomatoes. You can use what you have in your kitchen. You don't always have to, stick to that specific recipe. If there was one thing that I was taught in culinary school, use what you have. Be creative, because you know the flavor. You're making it, right? And that's why we have these tasting foods too, so you can try. So since the cauliflower doesn't have any meat in it, like raw meat or anything, I'm going to taste it now. It's safe to eat vegetables cooking. All right, so I'm just gonna get a chickpea, a little piece of the cauliflower. Taste that. It's very hot. I should not have gone that fast. Just be careful when you're tasting these two. I feel like this might need more salt since I added a whole can of chickpeas, but we'll try it. Okay. There we go. Excuse me. So I'm going to add a bit more salt since I added the chicken. you have other ingredients that add saltiness to your meals, feel free to use that too. Salt is always, I always have it. I use it. And it doesn't change that flavor profile as much. So I'm just going to put a little more. On low heat. That's set. It's nice and light too, since we added minimal amount of spices, nice and light. Okay, let's look at the chicken now. Chicken. So my chicken is pretty much cooked. Once again, that's because the pieces are nice and small, so it'll cook faster. Oh, and a comment that I did not make earlier, but I have said in previous lessons, when you're frying things or just cooking things in larger portions, keep in mind that the more you add into your pot or skillet, the lower your temperature will be. So especially if you're frying too, you want that crispy outer shell, right? Or you want the nice brown brown color. When you're deep frying, sauteing, just put a few pieces of the protein, whether it's tofu or chicken. Put a few pieces at a time so that the temperature remains high. The more you add it, the more you crowd the pot, the slower it'll cook, or it'll get soggy, and you're not going to get that nice crispy texture. Okay, so chicken's working. I'm going to taste that in like another minute or so. I want the chicken to be fully cooked before I try it because it's not healthy if you try it raw meat. And for chicken, it's 165 degrees Fahrenheit for it to be fully cooked. Okay, so I'm just going to let that cook a little more. For my salsa ingredients, I'm going to turn it off. That's as brown as I want it to get. Here, I'm going to show you one more time, just so you can see the colors. And when it's blended, it's going to be all, it's going to be different. So why not look at it now? See how pretty the browning is on the jalapenos? That's going to add a different flavor just to the jalapenos alone. If you just had jalapenos in here and no other ingredients, that would make that flavor stronger. It would be really good. Okay. So we have tomatoes, garlic chunks, onions, and jalapenos. I added salt and pepper to that. So when you're making your salsa, just be very careful when you're blending it, because if you're blending when it's hot, you may hurt yourself, right? Because it's too hot for the machine to handle, especially if it's a smaller one. So I'm going to place the jalapeno mixture into here for now, but I'm going to let it cool. I'm not going to blend it just yet. I'm also going to add the other ingredients just so you see it. Do we have any questions about the salsas or anything like that? Or even the chicken filling or the cauliflower filling? See, it's very hot, so I'm just gonna let it cool for a little bit. Okay. So since our fillings are almost done, we have our tortillas, right? Of course, you need the tortillas for the tacos. So we're gonna be heating up the tacos. Once again, if you have like a griddle or a grill, that's always nice, so you can get some of that charred flavor on your tortilla. If you don't, you can just get a skillet, add a little bit of oil. You could either put it on the pan, or you can kind of like brush the oil onto the tortilla. You can use a paper towel, put some oil, and then just like wipe it on there. If you have a brush, that's great too. And then just heat it up on the pan, on the skillet. So that's what we can do. And honestly, I'm just going to use this same one that the jalapenos were in, because it's gonna add more flavor to my tortillas. Nothing wrong with that. So we can start heating that up, and then we're gonna start plating, okay? And this is allowing my salsa mixture to cool. So I'm just gonna take 2. Some people enjoy 2 tortillas per taco. That's a bit much for me. I'm fine with 1. And these are smaller too. They're fragile. So I'm gonna put it on low heat. It was already hot, but on low heat, And this has some oil on the pan already, so I'm just gonna use those flavors, and that's okay. Just gonna let that heat up. Okay, the chicken's still on. Cauliflower is still on. Cauliflower is pretty much cooked. You just have to make sure that you like the flavors that are in there. I tried it. I added a little more salt to the chickpeas. You know what? I'm going to add a little more paprika too, just because I know myself and I want this to have some heat. Then I'm going to mix it one more time. And if you have those herbs, feel free to use it, whether it's dried or fresh. Of course, use the fresh one before you use the dried because it's fresh, it's nice, the flavor is going to be stronger. But feel free to use those herbs and just add it, and it'll add more color to it. You'll see as I plate what I'm going to do with the cilantro and such. The chicken, I'm letting that cook a little bit more. The tortillas here. If this were on high heat, then I would keep an eye on the tortillas because I don't want them to burn. But it's on very low heat and it's okay. So for this salsa, it's still cooling a bit, but I'm going to start adding the rest of the ingredients. So I have it in here. It has some oil to it already, but you may want to add a little bit more, okay? Just so that it helps the blender, because it's going to get stuck if you don't. We're going to add like half a teaspoon of salt to this. And you can taste it as you go. If you need to add more salt later on, that's okay. I'm going to add some honey. If you have a different type of sweetener, such as agave, feel free to use that too. Or anything you like. Really, if you want to use sugar, feel free to use sugar. So that's about like 2. Okay, let's just say that's a tablespoon, right? That's a tablespoon. And if you don't want anything sweet in your salsa, that's okay too. You don't have to. I know there are different variations to salsa. They have like the fresh mango one, mango habanero, like they have all those fun ones. So that's the sweetener for that. I'm using honey. I don't have any mangoes right now. Also, you don't have to cook those ingredients similar to what I just did. If you want, you can keep these all fresh and then blend it. So it's nice. You'll see the difference too. You'll taste the difference. I'm adding lemon juice now. You're gonna have the acidic. Some of my seeds are falling in here. So it'll either just get blended in there or I'll remove them. But yeah, so you have the acidity from the lemons, you have the sweetness from the honey, you have spiciness from the jalapenos, and you also have acidity from the tomatoes too, but it's a different type of acid, I should say. So this is about half a lemon. The juice, half of the juice of the lemon. Hands, I always have, you'll see me like wiping hands or wiping around. It's good, best practice to always like keep your ingredients nice and organized so that you know what you have. Same goes with the storage of your ingredients. If you have it stored a certain way, which is like the FIFO way, for your meat or for your produce, or just anything really, it's great. And FIFO means first in, first out. So you always want the newest thing towards the back and the older items towards the front so that you are more likely to use those first. Okay, so we're going back to the tortilla. Just gonna grab that one's ready. It's nice and soft. I'm gonna add the other one there. It's good. Okay. And while I alternate, I'm just letting this cool some more. And we're going to mix this up a little bit. Going to mix if you can't see it, I'm sorry. I'm removing the seeds, but I'm also mixing the ingredients. And it's gonna get blended together, but it's nice to get the juice and oil all over the container, because once I blend this, I need that juice to be able to come out so that it can blend properly. All right, it's still a little hot. Just gonna wait a little longer. Going to add some black pepper. And I have some extra cilantro here. I'm going to use some for the tacos, but I'm also going to add some to my salsa. I love cilantro. I love the flavor, and especially when it's fresh. I know some individuals don't like cilantro though, because they get that soap flavor, or they just don't like cilantro. So that's okay. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. Okay, I'm gonna let that cool for a moment longer. Any questions so far? I'm excited to present the dish. Okay, I'm just gonna flip the tortilla. Always flip your tortillas too, so that you get a nice even char or texture for that tortilla. Nice color. So that's heating up. So at this point, the chicken, going back to the chicken, it'll be all set. Give it a stir. I'm going to try it at this point. I'll show you actually. So this is the color that you'll have. It's like a nice brownish, orangey color, amber color. This chicken is, you can smell the cinnamon. The chicken is cooked at this point. So I'm just going to taste it before I plate. I honestly, I wonder if it's going to be sweeter or saltier, because sometimes orange are very like very sour, right? But then sometimes it can be really sweet too. So I wonder. Nice. It's not too salty, and it's not too sweet. If anything, I taste the cinnamon. It's good. Okay, great. So let's see. Yeah, that's it. One more minute. Okay, so we're going to start plating. These tortillas are good. I'll show you what they look like. So when I plate tacos, they tend to look like this, just so that it holds well. And see how it has a nice browning to it, like a deeper yellow, and you'll see the oil spots. That's what you want, because you don't want a dry tortilla. You don't want it to be too dry. So now I'm going to scoop some of the cauliflower into one. I'll do one of each so you can see both. Some cauliflower, tiny floret. And you don't have to put too much of the filling onto the tortilla, because you're not going to be able to grab that taco and eat it. Okay, now we're going to get some of the chicken. Here, I'll move this over. Okay, we'll work with it. Okay, so I'm going to add some of that chicken here. Keep it nice and simple. I know some people like to add like the lettuce and the cheese and everything like that. Feel free to do that, especially if you have those ingredients. Use the cheese, use the lettuce. Why not? Or you can use more fresh ingredients too, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna wipe the plate. It's just a habit of mine, so that the presentation is nice. So you have these two tacos right here. So far, not done yet. I'll show you what we're gonna do next, so that we can complete this. Okay, so at this point, we are going to blend this, okay? And it may be a little noisy, so please bear with me. I'm gonna blend this. This should be all right. If you can cool it all the way, that's ideal, but we have limited time. So just 1 second. It's gonna be a little loud. Okay, so that's good. I want mine chunky, so I just blended it a little bit, and I pulsed it a little, slightly. Okay, and see how like when you open it, it's smoky because it's still a bit hot. So there is the salsa. It may not look appetizing because of all the colors, it's all different, but when you taste it, it'll be nice. All right, so I'm gonna taste it before I add it. Great. You have that heat from the jalapeno. You have the chunks. I have chunks in mine. Chunks of tomato, chunks of onion, and you have the acidity from the lemon and the tomato, and then you have pieces of cilantro which add color to it. So that's great. Okay, so I placed some of the salsa on top of both. And if you use different color, if you use like tomatillos, then you'll have, which are like green tomatoes, essentially, you'll have different colors on your plate of a variety, right? And that's what you want. You want to enjoy what you're eating, whether it's the flavor, the texture, the appearance. You want it all to work out nicely. I'm adding some chopped cilantro on top. So you have your two tacos, you have your cauliflower tacos, you have your chicken tacos, you put some of the salsa, and you have extra salsa too, if you have chips. And then you just put the cilantro on top. Here, let me show you. There you go. I have quite a bit of food here, and it's just me. So what I'm going to do is store the rest. I have different containers, and I'm going to put them, so I'll show you actually. I have these quart containers, right? So I'll probably put in those. And then I can make tacos again for tomorrow. I like to prep my meal, so I'm going to do that. I can use it for tacos. You can put it on salads, right? Because like you said, the chickpeas are good salad, so you can add this to your meal. You can make a rice bowl, a grain bowl, any kind of bowl, really. That's another option. Or you can just eat it like this. It's really tasty. You don't necessarily need to add anything else. But this is a nice way to repurpose your meal. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out, email me. You're very welcome. And I hope you get to try the tacos. So enjoy your day.